Hi, this is Scott, Kilo Sierra 6, Delta Alpha Yankee, and for today's video, I'm going to be covering a fairly simple topic. In fact, a topic that is so simple that for some reason everyone seems to maybe be under the impression that it should be something everybody should automatically and intuitively know how to do. And I don't know why that is, but we tend in the amateur radio community to make that assumption. And this doesn't just affect the amateur radio community, but it also affects the public safety community. And what I'm talking about here is the simple task of speaking into a microphone in the proper fashion. Now, I can tell you in my personal experience, and I've been using radio my entire adult life, I was issued my first radio at the age of 17 and a half years old when I was in the United States Air Force. And I was handed, I believe it was a General Electric radio, but we used basic cop radios. It was when I was in the security police. And I was given the radio, and I kind of knew where the on-off volume control knob was, and I was told what frequencies were to be used for what circumstances, and I figured out kind of on my own which button to press to actually make the radio talk or be able to talk into the radio. But at no point did anyone take the radio and say, hey, you need to hold the radio this way so that your audio is most ideal. How about that? When I went to work for the Sheriff's Department, at the academy, they never covered radio operations. They covered telephone operations, oddly enough, but never did they talk about radio operations and how to hold the radio properly and speak into the microphone properly. And when I worked at the Sheriff's Department, there were guys that had been there for what seemed like a lifetime, old crusty sergeants. And it seemed to be the more crusty, the worse their microphone technique was. And they were crazy overmodulated and making all kinds of noise and hard to hear. And in some cases, I believe that was a deliberate action on their part. But at no point did we ever do anything about it. We never had a training class. Hey, when you're talking into the mic, it could have been a simple, briefing topic, but it just never got covered. And in the amateur radio community, we're forever telling people they have low audio or that they're overmodulated, but we seldom tell them how to fix that. And these poor guys are out there spinning around in circles wondering if the radio is junk or the radio's defective or they need to make an adjustment. And oftentimes it's just a real simple analog physical adjustment of how you're holding the microphone, and it'll change everything for you. So let me talk about this real super fast, all right? So when it comes to overmodulation, that's the first mistake we make. And what we mean by overmodulation is simply you're too damn loud. Okay, now this is caused by two things: holding the microphone right up against your face and then talking directly into the microphone. Okay, so in this case, I've got the microphone basically perpendicular to my cake hole here. And the way these microphones work, they work on the principle of air movement, okay? So if you're pumping too much air into the mic hole, it overstresses the microphone and it results in very poor audio quality. It's loud, it's indistinct, and it'll cause popping and all kinds of stuff. So the first thing we don't want to do is hold the microphone too close to our face, and we don't want to talk directly into it. Now, the other is low audio. So if I've got the microphone way out here, again, we're supposed to be pushing air into the microphone. The further away from your face, the less air you're going to be pushing into that microphone, and it's going to be less effective. So it needs to be closer to your face. Now, the other thing you'll hear is when people are trying to solve someone's overmodulation issue, they'll say talk across the microphone, but they never really explain what do we mean by talking across the microphone. So it's as simple as this. Ideally, so we don't want to talk directly into the mic hole. We want to turn it, all right? Now, I don't turn it a full 90 degrees. How I hold my microphone is I turn it like this, okay? So I can see, I would say, so if that's 90 degrees, it's going to be about 65 degrees. It's not exact, but it's not a full left-hand turn. It's just almost there. How about that? So we're kind of bouncing the air off of the microphone. That at least works for me, and it works for me based on actually testing this to see what the best angle and what the best distance from my face is to get the best output audio. And this is something that you can do working with another radio operator. You can say, hey, I want to get my audio dialed in, and just do a series of signal reports where you hold it at different distances away from your face, because different radios and different microphones are going to have different levels of sensitivity. Now, this is a microphone that's attached to a mobile radio here in my truck, but the same principle applies for HTs. They have a microphone hole on them. You need to know where that's at. Make sure you're not covering it with your finger while you're holding the radio. And again, it's the same thing. You're just going to turn it away from your face like so, and you're going to talk across it. And the distance, again, is going to be variable, and it's going to be based on whatever the particular radio model is. Yaesu FT65s, for instance, it's a radio that I promote a lot, and I've told a lot of folks to go out and get these. And one thing people will say is, well, they tend to have low audio. Well, here's what you do. Okay, in a lot of cases, that's low audio in comparison to the radio that they were using before. Move it a little closer to your face and talk a little bit louder, and you would be surprised how quickly that low audio goes away. So you kind of have to work with the system that you have in hand. Once you've done that, trust me, the low audio situation will go away for you. Or you may need, with the FT65, you may actually need to turn it a little closer to your face, but it's something that you have to experiment with. And once you've done it enough, you'll get the right recipe, and you'll know kind of for the best audio quality what you need to do. Now, in most cases, even if the audio is a little bit low or a little bit overmodulated, you're going to still be heard. But what we want to try to do, or what we should be striving to do as radio operators, is be as competent as possible in how we're operating our equipment. And it's kind of my own personal mission to take the amateur out of amateur radio. And what I mean by that is, just because it's amateur doesn't mean that we need to act like a bunch of incompetent dumbasses. We can run our gear, and we can run our gear well, and that's kind of what I'm focused on. So that's going to be the intent of this video series going forward, is talking about these little topics and getting a little bit better about what we're doing. So related to low audio, there are some other things that can be done too. There are mic gain adjustments that can be done within the radio and its settings. Now, not all radios have a mic gain setting, but you can play around with your microphone gain and adjust that and make it a little bit more or a little bit less sensitive. But really, the first thing you need to dial in is the physical parameters. Get the best setup you can with how you're holding the microphone, and then you can fine-tune it with microphone gain adjustments and get it just right. And then once you do that, you just develop that habit that when you're talking into the microphone, you're doing it in the proper fashion. So and you'll get it right, and you'll get it cleared up. But the biggest thing, the biggest mistake is the overmodulation thing, and that's talking directly into the microphone and having it too close to your face. That's the largest complaint that I run across. I've got a guy that pops up on our radios here locally that's just horrible about that. He must have that radio mounted right up against his gullet, and it's annoying as hell, and I wish he would stop doing it, but it is what it is. Just because guys like that operate doesn't necessarily mean you have to operate that way. So, take some pride in the quality of your output audio, and it'll go a long way towards making people more, or encourage people to communicate with you more often. So with that, I'll bring it to a close. Thank you for watching and or listening. This is Scott, Kilo Sierra 6, Delta Alpha Yankee from Visalia, California. Have a wonderful day.